Hey, what's up, guys? It's Mind Game here. Today, we're going to be doing a track breakdown of my song, Band for Band Remix. It sounds like this. It's like UK bass mixed with Levity kind of style, I would say. Here we go.
It's got to the point that I don't even care. I got jewels in the safe that I don't even wear. Alright, we could go band for band. Fuck that, we can go M for M.
Okay, that's what the first drop sounds like. And then our second drop sounds, it's a little bit more bassy.
Fuck that.
Okay. Fuck that. So, we're going to start off with the flutter noise. And this idea just kind of came to me when I was in the shower. I was like, holy shit, thinking of the BAND4BAND song. And I was like, what if it was kind of... I don't want to say UK bass because I feel like you guys are going to be like, this isn't UK bass. Since I'm not a Brit, but very American. This is my... I would say the biggest UK bass kind of thing about this song is the drums. Just listen to these guys. It's got that groove, you know? And us Americans don't have groove, but the Brits do. So that's where that is inspired from. Why don't we just start at the top here with the drums? We'll get into the flutter noise in a second. But for the drum pattern, we have the kick with a few little fades on the kicks. So you can see like the first kick has the least amount of fade. And then these kind of backup kicks, depending on how important they are, like I would say this is on the 1, the first bar. So obviously that's an important kick. This one's also going to be pretty important, this kind of two-step pattern. So you can kind of hear like, boom, this one, that one, that one. Those are all like the main kicks, and then these are kind of just like rhythm kicks. So yeah, depending on kind of how important the kick is where I put the fade on that one. And we have some EQ on this kick. I took out a lot of this 1K range because I wanted the kick to be sort of like deep sounding, and this gives the kick, it gives it the characteristic, and I didn't want a whole lot of characteristic. Kind of hear that clicky noise when I turn it up. I didn't want that in there. What do we have here? Yeah, this is just a snare or a clap. We had some other stuff in here when I was building the drums originally. I had the kicks in here, but then I separated them out so I could process them with the fades and stuff. But we have our snares in a snare bus. I always do this. And that is a great way of doing like your reverb and your echo stuff. If you want to have any reverb automations, I think we have quite a few. We have some echo automation for show. Yeah. So you hear that like da 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 da. With a bigger one right here. Yeah, so that's kind of a thing that the UK based people do a lot, with a little dub echo kind of vibe on the snares. I really love the way that sounds. And we have that. So we have for the snare clap, this is like a wood block. And you can see it's not exactly on the 1. So it kind of gives it like a two transients, like, you know. And then we have another rim. It's like a short snare. That gives it like the tonality. And that's just hats. We have a little drum loop too. That's kind of just carrying the rhythm a little bit. But altogether, the snares sound like this. And yeah, you can't really hear the wood block, but if we like accentuated that, you can kind of hear how it kind of gives the snare like a two-part sound. Makes it sound more natural. Makes the transient last a little bit longer too, so it will stand out more in the mix. Also right here, we have some little, these are like rim shots. That kind of... You can hear there's like little rim shots. That gives it a lot of momentum. You know, it keeps your head nodding. And we also have hi-hats. These are in MIDI, and we have them on alternating notes along with alternating velocities, so we could see that this top one is a lot higher than this lower one. Gives it that sort of swing effect without the notes actually being swung. And then, yeah, it's just a sampler. We got a little bit of reverb. We have EQ, just keeping it high, saturating it, and the auto pan, kind of moving it from left to right. If you're wearing headphones, you can hear it kind of slowly goes left, right. I like to do that with my hats and stuff, kind of pan them around a little bit. And then I also think we have a pan here. And if I'm not mistaken, these are a little bit out of phase. The pan is a little bit out of phase with each other. So that means, and this rate is 3/4. So it's a polyrhythm pan, which means that they'll kind of like phase in and out randomly. Well, not randomly, but at set intervals whenever they have a common rate. Yeah, forgot what that's called in math class, but you know what I'm talking about. They'll eventually cross at the point where they both repeat, you know. Yeah, that's just a loop. It's got a little bit of processing on it, pretty much the same stuff. And then what do we have some little perks. Super small perks. These are just like transients. You can't even really hear what they're doing in there. Yeah, so I think the snare echo dry wet is kind of cool. I didn't really go into that, but to give it those little, just kind of give it some little, you know, you can kind of hear that. We also have a lot of that happening on the vocals, which we'll get into in a second. But let's talk about our main noise here. So fair warning that this is a little bit distorted. I was really going for LUFS here. And it was kind of a creative choice because I wanted the flutter to distort into the sub. So, yeah, you can hear that the sub actually changes the sound of this flutter. You can hear the difference. So that was a creative choice. I wanted it to sound dirty like that. But if you didn't want it to sound dirty, you just have to turn the sub down and deal with the levels of it a little bit. But let's talk about this flutter. It is, I called it Levity noise because I was kind of going for, I forget which song, maybe Front to Back. But they have a noise that's kind of like this, with like a little bit of a flutter like that. And we have our basic shapes. And this is actually quite low, this octave. And it's being modulated with LFO3. You can see the octave is actually being pushed back and forth to -1 and -2, along with AM from B. I can't get into the details of how FM is different from AM, but I can tell you that AM is more subtle, and I just do whatever sounds better. So it's kind of like FM with this. If anyone knows in the comments how it works, please comment below. But yeah, it's modulating this sine wave. It's putting this one into this sine wave, and AM is doing it differently than FM. You can push it a lot higher without it sounding like absolute garbage. If it was FM, it would sound like this. Ew. You know? So AM, that's being modulated at 32, at a rate of 32. So it's very fast. If that wasn't there, it would just sound like a straight kind of. Oh, actually, that is coming from, so the flutter is also coming from this octave being really low. Yeah, the octave is controlling the speed of the flutter. And that's because I said the octave is really low. It's like really low to the point of where it's basically acting as an LFO, a low frequency oscillator. So this is just an oscillator, but it's a high frequency oscillator. If we turn it down low enough, it becomes a low frequency oscillator because it's moving so slow that it's not producing a sound wave. It's producing more of a rhythm. Yeah, it's all the same thing. So kind of have it at -2, which is like in between zone, where it is technically a sound wave, but I think it's just below our hearing level. And obviously we have it filtered out anyways, so we couldn't hear it, but yeah, it gives it that really cool flutter noise along with this. This is just kind of reinforcing it. It's actually not doing a whole lot. And then we have this LFO, which is going to be automated by our volume. So we have our automations here, and our volume is going to kind of drop off at this part. So it's going to give it more of a pluck. So it's just causing the knob to go down, and this LFO will modulate the level instead of the level just being at 100% like that. All right. So we have most of this stuff not active besides some reverb. Pretty self-explanatory there. Just a little bit. And we have our modulations. LFO rate is not doing anything there. Semitones. So this oscillator B, I forgot to mention, is up 3 octave and 7 semitones. And it's actually the same note throughout the entire thing, but just the semitones of the second one is changing. So the pitch is being controlled by the semitones of oscillator B. It's not actually changing the MIDI. The reason for that is because if we change the MIDI with this technique, having the first oscillator be acting as an LFO, then if we change the pitch of the note, it's going to change the flutter speed, right? So we don't want that to happen unless we do it purposefully, but I didn't want the rate of the LFO to change there, slash oscillator to change there. And then we also, going back into this, we have some unison, and it's detuned quite a bit. And it took me forever to get this exact point of where I wanted the detune to be, because it's a tough battle between sounding really cool and wide in stereo and then sounding absolutely terrible in mono. And sometimes clubs have mono systems and you play your songs that you make, and it sounds like shit. But if you have mini meters, which I would recommend producing with this, I look at it all the time, you can kind of see how it's phasing with this graph. So it's kind of phasing slowly. If we listen to it in mono, it sounds like this. So it does actually phase completely silent at one point, but I think it kind of the way I built this track, it kind of is like a different song in mono almost. Let's just listen to the whole thing for a second.
We could go band for band, fuck that. We can go M for M.
Okay, so yeah, it's obviously like not as good, but you know, who gives a fuck? I wanted it to at least phase at a time that made sense and not just kind of randomly. So if you are listening in mono, it won't sound terrible, but you could just also have not any detune and you just have it sound like that, which is actually a little bit louder. But that was just my choice there. I don't care a whole lot about the mono compatibility thing, and it sounds alright for me. But yeah, if I want it to be truly mono compatible, I would probably just re-export the song with one unison instead of two. But the detune controls the rate of how much it's phasing. So if it's a slow detune, I don't know. I thought it sounded cool. And then we also have this variation. Pretty much the same sound. It's just at a higher note. And yeah, as far as processing goes, we have an EQ cutting out the low. We have a limiter and we have a saturator. Why do we have both? Because so it's already being pushed really hard, and we're using the limiter to kind of push down the level, where a saturator is just going to clip off the level. So I still wanted that saturated kind of sound. So we pushed it down first and then clipped it, but it wouldn't be clipping it as much as if we just had it into a saturator. Let me show you guys. So with both, with no limiter, you can hear that the just saturated sound is a lot brighter, which is almost too much, but let's put the limiter on there. Yeah, so some of you guys might think it sounds a little bit oversaturated. It might be just a little bit, but I kind of wanted that harmonic up here to come out through the natural saturation that comes with the sub mixing in with the main flutter noise. So the sub is super fat. It is a sine wave with a little bit of harmonics I added here. And it has bright white on it. It's got a bandpass mix at 93. So it's kind of just, it's also just going to the noise. That's not affecting this oscillator A. It's just kind of opening up the high end. And then we're distorting it with tube with the mix at 32%. So it's it's kind of giving the original sound, the original fundamental sine wave, more of the space there to shine through. And then we have the saturator at 33% as well, kind of doing the same thing. And we have the EQ with a shelf on the high end. That's just to kind of tame the noise a little bit. Limiter. And then we have the utility dropping the gain down by 2 decibels. And then we also have like some random automation stuff with the volume happening in here. Kind of fades out at the end. Yeah, and then instead of a sub, this first hit, we have a little wub. That's the side chain that's making it sound like that. But this is basic wub, FM from B. Just kind of going up like that. Nothing crazy here. Processed with an OTT, a limiter, and negative 2.22 on the utility as well. I love processing my numbers with angel numbers. So instead of doing -2, I'll do negative 2.22. Instead of doing -4, I'll do like 444 because I think it will make my song have good luck, you know, because I know it doesn't, but when I'm in the moment, I'm like, yeah, totally. That's a sign. Yeah. So let's see here. For the second drop, we kind of switched it up a little bit. Similar sound design, but what we're doing here is this kind of like. This is where the echo really comes in. No, sorry, not the echo. This is where the unison really comes in. Is it this one? Yeah, I have it labeled as sub for some reason, but I think I made this from the sub patch originally. Oh. Okay, so for the second drop sound, I made it from the sub patch, and we have our FM from B. And that kind of like cool phasey sound is actually coming from the unison and the detune. You can see this is going crazy on the. Kind of looks like a little flower, which is cool too. Yeah, if it was just like mono, it'd sound like that. So yeah, the unison is sort of just like phasing it around because the two oscillators are at slightly different pitches. So one's gonna move faster than the other, and they'll kind of, oh, happy birthday. What the fuck? One will kind of catch up, and they'll sort of like phase with each other. Yeah, dude. We have some noise with that too. And our filter is just doing the same thing with the noise. It's sort of cutting off everything besides the high end, and then we're distorting it together, and this EQ and filter is not doing anything. So it's just distortion there. And then we have the EQ cutting out the lows. We're limiting it, we're saturating it, and we're reducing the gain by negative 0.56. I had to be really precise with this song. It took me forever to mix it because I wanted it to be super loud and distort just the amount that I wanted it to. You can hear how that sub is distorting with the original sound. Yeah. The sub is pretty much the same as the other one. It's got that white noise on it. So, yes, that is that. And then here we have a different one. Same but different. It's just got a little bit of, yeah, this LFO3 is just modulating that. It's just that FM, I think, is doing all that. And then we have like some LFO3 rate stuff happening to give it 1/8 to 1/4. Pretty simple there. What do we got here? Okay, yeah, so this next part here is like a super fat kind of wub. Looks like I bounced out the sub. Let's see if here. Alright. Pretty much the same thing. Yeah, we'll just look at this one because I froze this for some reason, but oh, actually, is it this up here? Yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. So, same thing, but we have a basic shape with the sync on at 2. So you could achieve the exact same thing just by raising it an octave, but that's how I did it. And we have the semitones at +7 there, giving it that perfect 5th harmonic. It's pretty subtle, being modulated with this and the level as well, along with another layer of sub. Why would he have another layer of sub if this is already acting as a sub? Well, because this FM from B is changing the shape of the wave, and I wanted to maintain the original fundamental note in there. If we turn it off, it kind of makes the fundamental E note a little bit weak. Want to keep that strong note as the FM's going up. You know. Yeah, it's pretty subtle though, but since we have the FM starting at 22 and going up to almost 30, I wanted to reinforce the original fundamental note because it's changing the way this wave looks and kind of removes the fundamental after the FM gets to a certain point. And we have our bright white noise being distorted, same thing as before. Saturation, EQ, limiter, utility. So that's all we got on it. Yep, that's pretty much the same noise too. So that's all of the cool stuff you guys need to see there. We have a lot going on with our vocals. Let's listen to the vocal buzz. Yeah, okay.
Alright. We could go band for band. Fuck that. We can go M for M.
Alright, so we have this like main, this is like so messy, but we have all of our main loud vocals up here. I got a little amp on it. We got a limiter, 2 limiters on it. EQ, another limiter on it. The reason why there's all these limiters on it is because there are different levels. Oops, different ceiling levels here. Or actually, sorry, the ceiling level is down here. So, kind of trimming off the volume at different points depending on which stage of the processing we're at here. You could also just put like one limiter on there, but you know, that's the way I did it. Vocal pop hall is a cool preset reverb. Hybrid reverb always sounds great. On Ableton, we have a lot of automation happening.
M for M. Alright.
Like it's a lot higher up there. And we have different like, these are like echo parts. So if we just solo this.
Don't even where.
Right, so I like have a channel that's just for echo. And I think we actually have 2 here. This is just high cut. So this part is going during the drop, so we want it to be cut up pretty high there. Reverb, saturation, which is actually just reducing the volume a little bit. Yeah, this is just kind of a vocal to keep the vibe going. Yeah, we have that going throughout basically the whole song. And then we have this.
We could go band for band. Fuck that.
So it's kind of like the intro vocal / bridge vocal. It's just got more reverb on it at 64%. Vocal pop hall, once again, use that. We have like kind of a band pass on this EQ, which is giving it sort of that like radio vibe.
It's got to the point that I don't even care. I got
like a really tight band pass would kind of make it sound like a radio if we tightened it up a lot.
It's got to the point that I don't even care. I got jewels in a safe that I don't even wear.
But we just have that sort of happening subtle amount. You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, we have a lot of like just kind of chops going on here, you know? A lot of just random little... He had a... Like, we'll do like, he had a death wish. We listen to that.
He had a...
Actually, that's he had an M.
They did him the worst way. He had a... Did him the worst way. He had a death wish. On his birthday, did him the worst way. He had a death wish. I get right under their skin. I don't even try. I guess I can't help it. I'ma have love for...
Yeah, I was just chopping it up a little bit there, kind of keeping that M thing going. Sort of all gets buried in the mix when you're listening to all of it, though. Oh, a little laser beam, too. Let's get distracted for a second and talk about that. I think it's just actually a splice sample. But it's pretty easy to make. If you want to make this sound, I'll just show you real quick. Let's get a little serum here. And I just found out it's pretty easy to make this just by pitching around a saw wave real quick. Put on the chorus. Yep, and then put a little high pass on it. You get the point. But yeah, you can do that, or you could even turn the resonance up a lot and do it like that. Have the resonance kind of sweep it. But yeah, that's how you would make that sort of sound. But yeah, I think I just sampled it because it's faster. But it's cool to know how to make the sounds that you're going to sample just in case. Yeah, I think that is all for the breakdown that we're going to do. We have a bunch of sweep stuff. We have a bunch of random hats down here for some reason. These have like echo on them. Yeah, and grain delay. Just kind of getting at that like space. These are mostly in the intro. We have some risers and stuff. Yeah, default snare buildup. All these little effects. Love that one. You know, I gotta have like an OG dub siren in there too because it's I actually kind of like just made it really short and then added a reverb to it and echo to it, because if it was long it kind of like drawn out, like it's doing too much, bro. So just have that little chirp. I thought it sounded pretty cool. But yeah, OG dub siren, gotta love it. Yeah, so I think that's all for now. If you want this whole project file, it's in my Patreon, link in description. If you want to do a private lesson with me, you can set up that on Patreon too. Thank you for watching. Hope you learned something from this video. Always want to teach you guys new stuff, and stay tuned for more. Peace.